Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Karmic Gacha system in Modern Family World. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 96, Phil the Best Dad. Part 1. Edward POV. And I lunged at Luke, trying to stop him from destroying the Iron Man helmet. However, he stopped his baton at the last minute and swerved to avoid me, making me pass by him. I stumbled and almost crashed into the wall, but my martial artist instinct saved me. Using the inertia, I stepped on the wall, breaking it a little, and unconsciously did a backflip to handle the excess momentum before landing next to Luke. I glared at him and took the helmet off while he was stunned, and walked away to put the helmet away at a safe place before dealing with the kid. Luke and Phil looked at each other with an amazed expression, but I ignored them. Phil and Luke's commentary. That was awesome. Phil and Luke shouted at the same time, completely forgetting Luke's earlier transgression and blasphemous action toward the Iron Man legacy. Commentary ends. Luke, what do you have to say for yourself? I said in a cold voice and expression as I slowly folded my sleeves and took off my watch. I vowed to beat up the kid today, even if I had to do it in front of his father. Luke gulped his saliva and confessed quickly, I wasn't really going to hit it. I just want to punish you for punishing me. I won't do it. Seriously. How should I know? That is not an excuse. I said as I walked menacingly to Luke. He backstepped quickly and said, I swear. I swear it on my dad's life. That isn't worth much, Luke. I still can't believe you. I said. Hey. Phil interjected, hurt by my statement. I turned to him and said, sorry, before turning to Luke again. Calm down, Ed. He even used a rubber baton. Phil said as he presented me the evidence to get Luke out of his punishment. I took a look at the toy baton and sighed in relief. Luke and Phil also breathed in relief. However, before Luke could look back up, I knocked his head with my fist. Ow! Luke exclaimed and grabbed his hurting head quickly. He got angry and snapped, what was that for? For making a mess. I said with a sly smirk before changing the subject, you guys can use all the facilities downstairs when you want to play, you can even take some time at the pool. The room next to mine is also under my name, so you can use it to change CL0s and all. Phil was confused, why did you book 2 rooms? Well, one was for my dad. But he's not coming over yet. But your house is ready? Phil said with a weird questioning inflection as he got confused by my action. I'm sure you already knew about that. So why do you want to waste your money? I shook my head and said, I'm not coming home today. I still have a lot of work to be done here. Also, I like it here. I'm not ready to go home yet. Phil caught my change in expression at the last sentence. He said reassuringly, okay. I guess I will go and change over there, even though the suite is so big. I chuckled a bit and slid them the room key for the other suite. Wait. You're not coming? Phil said in disbelief. Luke added, if you're not coming, can we still play? I nodded at Luke and said, yeah. You can use everything, even without me. Phil interjected quickly, no, that's not the point. If we come here, and only play by ourselves, then that means we're taking advantage of you. Nah. I don't see it that way, and I paid a lot for a room here. Might as well let you guys enjoy it. I said with a cocky smirk. Phil was in disbelief and turned to Luke, not wanting to go play without me. But as he saw Luke's expecting face, he had to relent and said, okay. We'll go play, but only for half an hour. I waved them goodbye as they reluctantly went to enjoy themselves. I put a "Do Not Disturb" sign on the door, and before I could close it, Haley and Abby appeared on the floor, coming out of the elevator and waved at me. "Hello there," I said as I channeled my inner Jedi again. Haley rolled her eyes and channeled her inner Grievous before saying, "General Kenobi, okay, I can't do that." My heart skipped a beat as she got the reference, and I couldn't help but grin widely as I saw her embarrassed face. Abby's eyes darted between looking at each of us before becoming wary of her friend. "How did you know?" I asked. She said in displeasure, "Dad made that joke about that for a year. I'm sick of it." I guess Phil was the original member, I thought gleefully. Abby rolled her eyes and gave me the files I asked her to take from the concierge. "They will deliver the rest later on. Their printer ran out of ink," she explained. "Okay. Thanks. You guys want to use the hot tub, right?" I said before giving them the room key for the other room. Their eyes lit up as they accepted the key. "Go stay there. I need to work here, so I'm not joining you." "Who?" "X2. Both of the girls were confused and I shoved them to the other room for them to enjoy their time without involving me. I have a lot of work to do today, and I have only a little time to do it. I still need to call Pepper and Harvey. I need that singles report now." I muttered before ignoring the girls and went to work instead. General POV. Isn't this weird? We're both pretty girls, and we're willing to join him in the hot tub, Haley said while Abby blushed. They had entered the hot tub after trying to tempt Ed for a while, but he didn't change his decision at all. Maybe something will happen, maybe it won't. But as a young man, isn't he filled with hormones and begging to join us when we are only wearing our bikinis? Haley said as she pulled her triangular shape, golden color bikini to fix its position. Abby, who wore the white, almost translucent when it got wet bikini, faces turned bright red and she whispered to Haley, "You said we were coming here to hang out. Why is this suddenly turning lewd?" Taken aback, Haley's eyes darted a few times before she decided to bulldoze through it. "Think, Abby. Think. It's not normal, right?" Abby thought for a while before sighing. "Yeah. I thought he would be excited to see us. But he couldn't care less," she said with a dejected tone. "See? Something is wrong with him. Do you think it got something to do with the dinner before? Is he still depressed from the grandma who passed away?" Haley asked. Abby shook her head and replied, "I'm not sure. Also, this is boring." Haley rolled her eyes and turned on the bubbles feature of the hot tub and said, "If you find the right angle at the water jets, it won't be so boring anymore." "You're right," Abby said blushingly as she made herself comfortable. Down at the hotel lobby, Phil almost forgot the suspicions he had as he exited the hotel lobby with Luke. Both of them were gleefully playing around as they moved towards the pool. However, both stopped in horror as they saw the person standing in front of them at the hotel lobby. "See Claire?" Phil said in a shaky voice. "Mom?" Luke was horrified and hid behind his dad quickly. "Wait. We didn't do anything wrong," he said in realization before bravely standing beside Phil again. "Where's Haley?" Claire asked with gritted teeth. "Huh? Haley is here?" Phil asked in confusion. "You don't know? She followed you all the way from home," Claire said angrily. "I called you multiple times. Why didn't you answer me?" Phil was shocked and he took out his phone to check, only to find 29 missed calls, notifications from Claire's number and numerous text messages. "Oh. I accidentally put it in silent mode," Phil said casually. Claire was fuming mad, and lunged at Phil before angrily checking out his pockets. She found the room key and asked, "Which room are they in?" "Claire. Why are you already mad? It's highly inappropriate to come to a hotel on her own, Phil. Not to mention dangerous. She needs to know that this type of behavior is not okay." Claire snapped. She huffed to the elevator while Phil thought about the matter. "Are you coming?" Claire turned back to ask Phil as he was still in his initial position. "Well," Phil muttered reluctantly as he glanced at the pool and Luke. Claire rolled her eyes and said, "Forget it." She walked away alone to scold her daughter and drag her home. "Ah. This is bliss," Haley muttered as she enjoyed the hot tub, not knowing a calamity was walking in her direction. Edward POV. Knock knock asterisk. I put on the do not disturb, right? I muttered as I heard someone urgently knocking on the door. "Haley, I know you're in there," Claire shouted from outside the room. I was confused and went to open the door. Before I could greet her, Claire barged into the room looking for Haley and Abby. "Where are they?" she asked after checking the closet, the toilet, and even inside the hot tub, fearing that they were hiding under the water. "Who?" I asked while faking my confusion. Claire raised one of her eyebrows and said, "Don't lie to me. I know Haley and Abby are here." "But they are not?" I acted again, trying to help the two girls. However, at the same time, Haley and Abby opened their hotel room door as they wanted to persuade me again and show me what I was missing, but froze as they saw Claire from afar. Luckily, Claire hasn't noticed them yet. "Claire, do you want to see the new company restructuring that I made? I could use your opinion." I pointed at my laptop, making Claire turn her head away from catching the girls, and gestured to the girls to move back inside the room quickly as before Claire turned her head back to face me. "What?" Claire said in confusion as she saw a glimpse of my weird expression. "Nothing. Let's talk dash." "Wait. I need to call the kids," Claire said and took out her phone. She immediately called Haley again, wanting to know her location right now. General POV. "Oh my god, my god. What should we do?" Abby was freaked out as it was her first time to get into trouble with a parental figure before. Despite her goth girl persona, she was actually quite polite to the adults. "No. Don't worry. Search for nature's sound right now," Haley ordered as her phone rang. "Do it. Quick," she urged Abby before picking up the call. Haley mimicked a panting breath and said, "Hey mom, huff huff asterisk." "Haley. Where are you?" Claire asked angrily. "Why didn't you pick up my call?" "Huh? I told you I was going hiking with Abby. I must have lost connection on the hill. I just got your call right now," Haley said, faking her confusion. Abby played the YouTube video of the nature sound, making Claire hear some birds squawking from the other line. She subconsciously relaxed and thought, "Did I see wrong? I'm sure she got to the hotel?" "Haley. Don't lie. I saw you at the hotel with Abby," Claire said. "I told you. They never came," Edward added. Claire shushed Ed hurriedly. "Huh? Mom, are you with Ed? Why did you go there?" "Yeah, Mrs. Dunphy. It's pretty weird to visit a 15-year-old kid at a hotel early in the morning," Abby added, making both of the girls giggle pretty hard as they gaslight Claire. "Wha no. I followed you guys." "Really, Mom? You followed us? Are you even sure that was us? Or did you follow some random girl somewhere?" "If you really don't believe me, I can give the phone to Abby's mom. You can talk to her and see if we were lying." Claire was flabbergasted and started to question her memory. "Wait. Desiree's there?" "Yeah, Mom. I told you we're hiking with her today," Haley said before urging Abby to play along. Abby made her most accurate impersonation of Desiree and said, "Haley. Abby. Hurry up. I want to take a steam shower with him. The sweats are pooling at some weird places." Haley mouthed, "What the fuck dash?" Abby replied silently, "Sorry. I panicked. Do you want me to run down the hill now?" Haley said with a hint of anger, making Claire feel abashed and said, "No dear. Don't run down the hill. It isn't safe. You know what? I trust you. Be safe, and watch out for Coyote Dash." Before Claire could finish, she heard the Flappy Bird advertisement sound coming from the other line. "PewDiePie ads, Hey, what's up, guys? Today we're going to review the popular game Flappy Bird. What was that? She asked in suspicion. Ed nodded in satisfaction as he heard the ads and said, "My money is being put to good use." Inside the next room, both Abby and Haley were baffled by the sudden advertisement popping out on the nature video and tried to shut it down quickly. Abby is playing Ed's mobile game. She misses him, Haley said quickly. Abby slapped her arm and mouthed, "What the hell?" "Sorry." I panicked. Claire looked at Ed suddenly and sighed, "Tell her it's going to be okay." "I'll let you go now." "Okay," Haley replied gleefully before cutting the call. Both of the girls slumped on the floor as they breathed in relief after managing to fool Claire. Sorry you got to see that, Ed," Claire said apologetically as she realized she had misunderstood the situation. Edward POV. "You should be more sorry that you barged into my room," I said teasingly before saying, "Now, can I please get back to work?" Sure. I will go back now. I'm so embarrassed," Claire said perfunctorily without feeling that much remorse. She then asked, "When are you going back home? Are you going back with Phil or your dad?" "Nah. I'm planning on staying here for a while," I said. Claire was a bit taken aback and she asked, "Why?" "It's closer to the decathlon venue from here." I lied about my excuse and chased her away. "Anyway, I will be emailing you the arrangements for the company that you need to implement next week. Don't try to do it all in one day, and plan your workload properly. I'm sick of Alex texting me, complaining about you." Claire was flabbergasted and said, "I didn't work that much." "Dinner is a time for family, Claire," I said lazily before ushering her out of the room. Claire held the door before I could close it and said, "I'll prepare lunch for you tomorrow." "You cannot cook here, right? Do you have any requests?" "Just a sandwich will be enough," I said before closing the door. As Claire finally went away, I breathed in relief and opened the door again before walking to the next room. Haley and Abby were still in shock about the matter as I walked in. "She's gone," I said. "I'm still in disbelief that you guys managed to get away with it," I added with a grin before helping both of them get up from sitting on the floor. "Most of it is thanks to luck," Abby said. "Hey! My flawless execution is the thing that sold it," Haley said angrily. I laughed before Haley stumbled and fell towards me. I caught her by wrapping my hand around her body, making her wet robe pressed right on my body. Sorry," Haley said bashfully before sliding her stray hair behind her ears. Abby pouted and did the same thing, but at the same time pressing her massive titties on my chest. "Sorry," Abby said with a sly smile. Haley widened her eyes in disbelief before pressing her chest on my body too. I rolled my eyes at both of them and said, "You guys should leave before Phil comes back up. After all, I gave him the key to this hotel room." "Ugh." Haley groaned in frustration before saying, "It's boring anyway. All work and no play have made you a very boring boy." I coughed twice and said, "I have responsibilities." "You're 15. Enjoy life a little," Abby said before leaning forward and whispered to my ear. "You know, if you had come sooner. I don't know, maybe Haley and I would have shown you something good." She blew gently into my ears, turning me on. However, she took a step back and said normally, "Too bad we're going to leave now." "We're leaving?" Haley asked in confusion. "Yeah. He's not joining us, Dash." "Wait. I just couldn't join you, before I finished my work for the morning," I blurted out. Haley and Abby had a sly smirk on their faces and said, "Too late." During lunch, Phil, Luke, and I went to the hotel restaurant and enjoyed the food together before he decided to ask me one more time. "Why don't you join us to play tennis after this?" Phil said. "Are you really playing? Do you even know how to play?" I asked while taking a sip of the cold cola. Phil scratched his cheek and said, "I used to." Oh boy. Ha ha. In college, me and my roommate always went and visited various clubs. We would pretend to be members to get in. It was a good stress reliever, you know, two guys just playing around. His tone was happy, but his eyes were filled with suspicions. I creased my eyebrows as I thought about where he was going with this story. You know, Ed. People relax in different ways. Like me and my roommate. Some went on vacations. Some meet new people. Some do drugs. His gaze turned sharp as he wanted to study the change in my expressions, but as I had no change, he turned his gaze into a kind man again and said, you know, staying in the hotel for so long isn't that relaxing. If you want to stay in a room, you can just go back home. Oh no. I like it here. I'm not ready to go back home yet, I said as I cut the steak in front of me and ate it. Phil was confused by my reactions, but he shrugged and didn't think deeply about it until he got home later in the day. The duo waved goodbye to me after lunch, and I went back to my room to work. My dad called to say he was fixing the house and I could return today, but I wasn't going to waste my money as I had already prolonged my stay over there, with his consent before this. It wasn't until later that night, someone knocked on my door. I saw Phil when I opened it, and he asked me directly, so Ed, why are you avoiding going back home? Chapter 97, Phil the Best Dad, Part 2. So Ed, why are you avoiding going back home? Phil said with a serious tone as I opened the door. I got exposed, huh? I clicked my tongue before inviting him into the room. I turned off the laptop as I sat, and Phil was sitting right next to me. How did you find out? I asked curiously. Phil's commentary. I had no idea about it. I was just reaching, and when something came out of it I could only go with the flow. Phil said puzzledly as he never thought a simple question could expose so much more. Commentary ends. Phil sighed and walked to the desk and sat next on my right side. He patted my right shoulder and said in a calming voice, while inwardly racking his brain to figure out how to gain my trust and make me believe that he actually knew about my predicament. You avoiding your home is the opposite of everything I know about you? You love your home, or at least that's what I thought. So will you tell me why you are not going back? His tone carried no hidden intention, and he was truly worried for my current emotional state. I rubbed my hair in frustration and said without looking at him, I don't know. I have a lot of work. Ed. Phil said with a head tilt as if he already knew I was lying. I widened my eyes, glanced at him and sighed before saying, the house, it's starting to look better. And that's troubling, why? Phil asked without urging me for an answer. He waited patiently until I decided to open up and said, it is weird. The house is weird? He asked with puzzlement. The reason is weird. I clarified. Phil nodded and said with a smile, I love weird things. Try me. I laughed a bit and took a deep breath before replying. Well, I kinda feel suffocated there. Especially when I'm alone in the house. I said, feeling as if a stone was removed from my heart as I confessed my true thoughts. Phil leaned forward, his face turned a bit more serious. Did you start to feel this way when the house started to look normal again? He was reminded of the messy and dilapidated-looking house before, and started to piece all the clues together. Yeah, I said, rubbing my head together. Even I didn't understand my unease being alone at that house. Yesterday when I slept with Taylor, I was extremely shocked when I felt at peace as I cuddled with her on the bed, knowing how difficult it was for me to go to sleep without the rest skill that I had gotten. That was why I prolonged my stay here and was reluctant to go back home. I felt at ease here, or so I thought, 'cause while I was still okay, something was still missing. I knew I was avoiding something, but I just decided to do what I had perfected and just ignore it all. The good time was ruined by a simple statement from Taylor though. Flashback. While Ed and Taylor were cuddling on the bed, Taylor suddenly asked, so, what are we? Flashback ends. When it started to look the way it did before, you know. Before she left the house. The memories just kept popping up even at the slightest prompt, the simplest things would bring with them some past memories. The silence inside the house just kept tearing my psyche apart. My heart was torn as to whether I should love her or hate her. I took a deep breath to calm down and explained, however, I didn't feel the same way with the silence here at the hotel. What was once torture became peace once again. Phil nodded as I poured my heart out, and he kept listening without interrupting me. Then, if you want to enjoy the silence, why are you working really hard here? He asked. I opened my mouth a few times, and I couldn't find the answer. He nodded in understanding inside. You're searching for peace, yet, you surround yourself with chaos when you feel like you have found it. My eyes lit up as I realized something. I see. It's a contrast between the two feelings. If I don't find the source of it, confront it, and finally accept it, then, I will never feel at peace no matter where I go in the future. My work obsession can be associated with my lack of control during childhood. I was actually using work because when I am working I am the boss, so my word is law and I can finally feel that I am in control in my life. I'm surprised that you can see that, Phil. You're really wise. I said, fully in awe at Phil's capabilities to connect with others on an emotional level. Phil's mouth was agape as he didn't know what just happened. Phil's commentary. I wanted to say to him that maybe you're looking for peace at the wrong place. Maybe it isn't in the places you frequent, but the people you visit. But, he made me swallow my words as he suddenly achieved an emotional breakthrough on his own. Phil was at a loss about what to do with the situation. Commentary ends. Sure. Let's go with that. Phil said while avoiding my worshipping eyes. Anyway, I also want to talk to you about locking your front door. Alex, Haley, and even Claire have told me that why do you keep looking at me like that? Phil was baffled as I was still having an odd look as he changed the subject. You saw through that too, huh? I said solemnly, making Phil more confused than ever in his entire life. The more normal the house looked, the more uncomfortable it was for me to stay there. I guess that was why the previous me trashed the house. I, however, couldn't do as he did because I have major OCD, but I still couldn't accept the current situation either. I was stuck between the two lives, and I needed to get out of there hurriedly. I told him about the suffocation, but I didn't delve deep into the matter. Phil nodded as he listened to my words attentively. He sighed before asking, so, while you're alone, you didn't lock the door? Yes. I left it that way, in case I needed to make a quick escape from the house. Basically, I kept an escape route open in case I needed to make a quick gateway. When the house was unlocked, the suffocation I felt became slightly manageable. At first, I thought I had developed claustrophobia, but I only felt suffocated at my house. It was unsafe for me to do that, and I was aware of it. But I couldn't stop it. Because, where else could I go? There was something genuinely wrong with me, and I needed some time outside the house to process the trauma the 12-year-old had kept. In the 2 days I lived here, I wasn't just working, but I was also deciphering my labyrinth of memories and trying to find the cause of my current condition so that I could be at peace in my own home again. To be honest, even the lights out thing was also, I confessed while scratching my cheek. Phil widened his eyes and said, "What? Seriously? Did you trip Cam and let him splash the socket?" I didn't trip him, I just didn't tell him there was an almond nut on the floor. Phil thought for a while and said, "Nah. That wasn't your fault." I looked at his face and said, "No. It was my fault. No. You didn't purposely put the nut there, right? You just didn't speak up. Also, don't tell Cam about this," Phil said before he shuddered as he thought about Cam's potential reaction to the news. It's okay to feel lost, Ed. Everyone feels lost at some point in time, Phil said comfortingly as he patted my head. When that happens, what you can do is to find the answer at the route you haven't walked on yet. Or, ask a guide, a wise man, for the answer. I smirked and said teasingly, so, journey to self-enlightenment? That's kinda cliche, right? Should I go to my hometown in Wisconsin? Find a country girl to help me conquer the beautiful celebrity, only to then finally figure out the thing I have been searching for was right in front of my eyes the whole time. You can go the Hallmark movie route too. Or, you can try to make the city more bearable first before deciding to move far, far away. Like what? Phil then smiled at me and offered, why don't you come stay at our house instead? Just to take your mind off the house thing. Oh dash. I shook my head and said, no Phil. That's just avoiding the problems. I wanted to say or dot. He interjected with a smile. Or, if the house feels suffocating. Then maybe, what you need is a new change. Change? I raised my eyebrow at him. Yeah. Change. Smash the bricks. Change the tiles, the wallpapers, the furniture. My eyes lit up as I thought about it. Change the lawn. Break a few walls. Make it a whole new house. Then, you won't find it familiar anymore. You won't get reminded of your life again before it gets better. That might work. I cannot believe I didn't think about this before. I said in disbelief as I looked at Phil with my mouth agape. I stood up and said decisively. I just have to smash the whole house, and build the entire thing from the ashes. Phil was horrified and said hurriedly, wait. No. That's not what I meant. After an intense discussion on whether or not I should burn the whole house to the ground, I left the hotel with Phil later that night to get back to the neighborhood. After all, I still have school tomorrow. And no, I wouldn't be sleeping at Dunphy's house. My dad was home, so as long as I wasn't alone, I wouldn't suffer staying inside the house. Ed. We need to talk. Ted said as I walked into the house. I was confused by his sudden sternness, and saw Phil having a conflicted expression on his face as he stood beside me. Do you know what this is? Dad said, taking out a crumpled paper bag. Trash? I guessed in confusion, not understanding what he wanted to do here. My reaction made Dad confused. He looked at Phil, who was shaking his head at him, gesturing him not to go on with it, however he ignored the hints. This is marijuana. Dad said with gritted teeth. I tilted my head in confusion and said, so? We're having a party or something? Ed. What your dad is trying to say is, we found marijuana in the attic. Do you know anything about it? Phil said, trying to salvage the situation. However, Ted was already fuming from Ed's response. Phil's commentary. If I didn't know about his thoughts and disorder, I would have the same reaction as Ted. But if I think about it, marijuana is used to lessen anxiety. If Ed uses it, I'm sure it's not for fun. Commentary ends. That's not mine. I said honestly after noticing my dad's facial expression. Who the hell kept their stash in the attic? I never kept any stash around the house, so it's not me. I contemplated as I realized why Dad was so mad. I don't smoke weed. And there's only 2 people left in this house. Dad said with gritted teeth. So by elimination, the weed is mine? I said sarcastically and rolled my eyes before walking closer to my dad and snatching the paper bag from him. What the dash, Dad almost cursed, but I opened the paper bag and smelled the marijuana inside of it. My face grimaced as I smelled the musty smell, and said, this must be up there for years. Not only that the damp atmosphere up there had ruined the plant, it was also of low quality. Dad was confused and asked, it's been there for years? I checked the yellow paper bag and said, Dad. It's been there so long that the original white paper bag had turned into a yellow one. I showed him some traces of discoloration on the paper bag before saying, also. Nowadays, the new hybrid weed strain has taken over the market as it's low in THC. This one is not. Phil nodded, but Dad raised one of his eyebrows. And, how do you know so much about the plant? I would have twitched my body if I didn't have the acting talent. I just looked discontentedly at him and said childishly, because Edward is such a good boy. I rolled my eyes in displeasure and smacked the paper bag on my dad's stomach before he took it from my hand. I'm vying to become an artist. Do you really think I will smoke weed? I decided to gaslight him to sculpt the point inside his head. Dad was abashed and said, "So, whose is it?" "How should I know?" "Maybe Miran Dash." "No. Ed. She's still your mom," Dad said decisively. I clicked my tongue and said, "Anyway." Horror. Dad fell into deep thought while I walked away to the kitchen to grab a drink. After I came back, Dad didn't pursue the matter anymore, even though he was still feeling suspicious about the matter. Phil sighed and said, "Why is your family relationship so strained?" "It must be because of the drugs. Now I finally understand why the government banned these drugs. They must be tearing up a happy family," Phil said with gritted teeth as he held the paper bag in his hand. "This type of stuff should be destroyed," he said and threw the paper bag into the fireplace. I was shocked, but I didn't react. "Phil? What did you do?" Ted said in horror before turning off the fireplace using a switch, but the plant had already been lit up. "What? This type of stuff didn't belong in a home," Phil said decisively. "I should prepare the snacks," I said as I saw clouds of smoke coming out from the fireplace. In less than 5 minutes, all three of us were sitting nearby the fireplace with a funny smile on our faces. "Phil, you're the best dad ever," I muttered to Phil, before we all laughed together. "I need some snacks," Ted said as he licked his lips. "Put them in a bowl," he chattered, then he had a high revelation. Bowl. It's a weird word. I never noticed that before. Ed turned to Phil and talked to him while Ted was constantly muttering the word bowl in different intonation and nuances. "You should come with us to family camp this summer," Phil said excitedly. "I need to go Wiscount. Wiscount what?" "Sheep," Phil replied. "1 sheep. 2 sheep." He tried to joke, but then he got sleepy as he continued. "Dad, should we go to Cuba?" Ed asked suddenly. "Bowl?" 2 days passed by quickly, and it was now Tuesday. "Mr. Newgate, you need to answer test papers from multiple subjects today. Are you prepared?" Mrs. Henderson asked. After a heart-to-heart discussion with my dad, under the influence of weed, he finally agreed to let me skip grades and to enter grade 11 directly next year. I would be skipping the freshman and sophomore year in high school if I managed to score in all of the examinations today. "I'm ready," I said to Mrs. Henderson as I sat alone in the class with her. She was appointed as the examiner by the principal, and would conduct the test as harshly as she could under the request of my dad. The pressure was great, therefore I had unlocked the memory from the year 2175 that I got from the Gacha before and had comprehended even PhD level of knowledge in various subjects such as biochemistry, rocket science, and even medicine. With the knowledge, I finished the air fryer schematics and would start building it after the decathlon. I really didn't expect to have so much knowledge from just a simple low-quality memory gacha. But it seems the owner of the memory had embarked on the path to become a scientist. That's why I had so much gain in it, even if it was her memory from her early years. I had already instructed Harvey to patent the technology, and I was waiting for the good news from her today. "Let's begin," Mrs. Henderson said before placing a thick mathematical exam paper gently on top of my table. I nodded and started the examinations quietly. My hand didn't stop writing, not even for a second while I answered the questions. Third-person POV. Dunphy's house. Monday night. I need to skip grades too. MOM. Please. Alex begged her mother, but her pride prevented her from throwing a tantrum and only followed her mother around while she was cleaning the house to annoy her. "Alex, we talked about this," Claire said decisively as she threw the blanket angrily into the laundry basket. "Yeah. You feel that it will be harsh for me to be in a class with the older kids." "But Mom, my friends are all older kids," Alex debated. True. Before Ed, Alex spent most of her days alone in middle school. Now, she has a group of loyal friends that accepted her for who she was, and she was reluctant to let them all go. If she skipped a grade, she could be in the same class as Jenna, Elsa, and Jacob next year. Enid would be left behind, but Alex knew that Enid was smarter than she looks. If she skipped grades too, then they could all be together in the same high school next year. And the school life that she had always dreamed of will be a reality. A few houses over, at the Newgates house, various heavy machinery had been placed in front of the lawn. Jay Pritchett and Cameron Tucker stood in front of the house with varying faces. With a sullen face, Jay said, "How in the hell did I agree to this?" "Cheer up, Jay. Don't you see? Ed trusts us, because we're the most creative person he has ever seen," Cameron said delusionally. "He gave us a blueprint." Jay said gruffly to slow down Cam's enthusiasm. Ed had hired Cam, who was doing nothing at his house, as a co-project manager with Jay. Jay tried to reject the work at first, but Ed brought in 3 big guns to buy his effort. 1. A tremendous advancement in closet technology. 2. Gloria's breasts. With Gloria persuasion, there was no way for Jay to reject helping Cam as a co-manager in this project. Ed had paired them up together as Cam needed someone to tamp down his enthusiasm and crazy ideas, and with the added bonus of Jay being a professional in DIY home improvement projects. Together, they made an okay team. Chapter 98, Pre-Competition Jitters? Edward POV. The sky was darkened by rain CL0UDS, however it wasn't raining just yet. The high-pressure gust of wind had uplifted many girls' skirts today, making a pervert's dreams come true. However, I couldn't enjoy the rainy day as I had to focus on the grade-skipping exams in front of me. I had already finished with the history and English literature subject, and now, I was facing the math subject. As I jotted down the answer on the second final question, I suddenly realized something and turned to Mrs. Henderson, who was sitting directly in front of me in the teacher's chair with a confused expression. "Why? You can't answer it?" she said with a sly smirk. Her hair was tied up in a bun, and I could sense tiredness emanating from her voice. "This is grade 12 stuff. There's no problem with me answering it, but is it necessary?" I asked, hiding my curiosity about why she was behaving this way today when she had never shown her tiredness in front of the students, ever. "It's your choice, Mr. Newgate," Mrs. Henderson said before reprimanding me. "Also, don't talk while having your exam." She continued to mark my exam paper as she ignored me. I was flabbergasted as I was the only student there in the class, but decided not to argue with the teacher and turned my attention back to the test papers. It took me 3 hours to answer the first part of the test. At the same time, the rest of the decathlon team members were answering their own test inside another classroom. As I was the only one in grade 8 while the others were in grade 7, I had to answer the exam question alone. Alex, Haruna, and the douche, Sanjay, were taking the exams in front of their classroom teacher as I did it with mine. My situation was different from the other students. They were only making up the exam questions for the time we were going to miss school, Wednesday and Thursday. Although the competition was only on Wednesday, the school had allocated Thursday as a reward for the students to take a day off and enjoy themselves. Kinda missing the point of the whole enjoying themselves thing if they had to take the exam earlier, isn't it? I thought to myself. When they return on Friday, they will have to continue with the exams. While for myself, I was having all of the exams cramped together inside one day of school. It was unorthodox, but both the principal and Mrs. Henderson allowed me to do so as they had absolute trust in me. "Come back after lunch for the rest of the test, Mr. Newgate," Mrs. Henderson said as I gave her the papers I had finished. I nodded and asked, "Aren't you going to lunch, ma'am?" Without raising her head, she said while marking the exam paper on the spot, "History is your weak subject, Mr. Newgate. Also, you don't have to worry about my lunch. Go and enjoy your time with your friends. You won't be able to for much longer." I smiled sadly as I heard that and walked to the cafeteria while thinking about what the teacher said. True, I wouldn't be able to be among my newly made friends after I skipped a few grades. Sure, in the beginning, we could still gather together as we went through high school together. But then, it will just be on a special occasion, and will most likely devolve into a simple nod as we pass each other in the hallways. I shouldn't be too negative. Who knows what will happen in the future? I muttered as I walked the noisy hallways. The students were stealing glances and even pointing their fingers at me as I passed by. Some courageous girls even tried to strike up a conversation, and I refused their approach politely. But some of them didn't know how to read the hint, making me depend on a more drastic method. For example, this manic pixie dream girl in front of me. Ed. You're so funny. Why don't you make me your girlfriend? You're always looking at me, so I know you're attracted to me. The purple-haired, short girl with a stout body and overall vain demeanor said while putting her hands all over my torso. While being coquettish, she said, "Oh my God. What is this? A six-pack? Are you perhaps hiding a dash?" Before she could go on any further, I slapped her hands away from my body and leaned in. Then, I whispered to her ears. As she heard my words, her face turned ashen and horrified, and she finally stopped behaving like a madman. I nodded in satisfaction and continued walking to the cafeteria, ignoring the gazes of all the other kids around. So, Jenna is the weird one. I muttered in newfound understanding. Third-person POV of Mrs. Henderson. Dongshin, the Afterlife senior agent, had invited Henderson to a Korean barbecue place last night before the exams started. As the male agent put a wrapped samgyeopsal into his mouth, he said to the woman, "You know, your role will be over once he gets into high school, right? Don't talk while eating. It's disgusting." Henderson reprimanded the agent with a grimace on her face. Dongshin smiled as he wiped his mouth with a napkin and said, "You really have changed. You won't even bother to scold me if it was you before descending to earth. Too bad your time is almost over." Henderson nodded and said, "I know." With a hint of reluctance, she said, "When the school term is over, so will Mrs. Henderson, the middle school teacher." Dongshim suddenly put his dirty hand on Henderson's shoulder and said, "Cheer up. Look at the bright side. At the very least, the company is giving us a 10% discount at this restaurant." Henderson didn't know how to respond to her visiting senior. But as he ruined her dress, she grabbed a fork and stabbed his hand, making the guy scream in pain. Edward POV. Ed. Over here. Jacob called from afar. The group was sitting around a circular table, conversing with each other as they ate. Alex. Look over here. This color is so pretty. Enid said as she showed Alex's own hand to her. Nose deep in her studies, Alex glances at her fingers, smirked a bit before turning her attention back to her books. Enid sighed and continued to put nail polish on Alex's other hand while Elsa and Jacob were acting like a dumb couple in front of them. "You're so pretty. I just want to keep you right in my pocket," Jacob said as he flirtingly brushed Elsa's hair behind her ear. Elsa blushed and said, "Then we will be together all the time dash." I got sickened by them and retorted, "If Jacob kept growing, he could literally put you in his pocket." "Where's Jenna?" I sat down next to Jacob and Enid, circular table, and smacked Jacob right in the middle of his back for his revolting demeanor. It was as if they thought I couldn't see them touching each other in intimate places underneath the table. While Jacob tried to rub the sore place, Elsa said, "She's getting some food." I nodded and opened my lunch bag given by Claire in the morning before I went to school. "Hey. Why is yours more special than mine?" Alex said in disbelief as she saw that my lunch was packed properly, while hers were just thrown into the paper bag carelessly. Not to mention mine was more complete with additional fruits as snacks. "Because I'm more special than you in your mom's heart," I said casually, causing Alex to roll her eyes. She wanted to retort but was disrupted. "Hey guys. Ed. I finished Baratai," Jenna said in excitement as she pushed Jacob away to sit next to me. I smiled while eating my sandwich, finished chewing first and swallowed before turning to her and said, "Really? So you didn't study?" "I studied a little bit." Jenna's face flushed as she got caught. Alex rolled her eyes and slammed her book on the table before reprimanding Jenna. "Listen. I don't care about your bet, how you guys are going to make out if she got all A's. But I gave you my notes and energy. So if your grades are dash, Alex. Chill. I said, cutting Alex off before she could keep going with her rant. Alex snorted and returned to her book while giving Jenna a side eye. Feeling her guilty conscience pricked, Jenna quickly said, I have already finished all the notes you gave me. I only watched the show while I was resting. Lies. Elsa added. Jenna glared at her friend and said, I didn't lie. Although a weird thing did happen, I still studied? Weird thing? What happened? I asked curiously. No, nothing. How's your test? Jenna avoided my eyes and stammered, making her look like she was hiding something. The entire group turned to Jenna as if they were hyenas looking at delicious meat. What happened, Jenna? You can tell us. We are your closest friends. Enid said coaxingly. And I'm your best friend. Elsa said. And I'm your best friend's handsome boyfriend. Jacob didn't forget to use the opportunity to declare his identity once again. I threw the paper bag at his head, in which he accepted the punishment as he knew he did something wrong. Then, Elsa and Jacob locked eyes with each other before they passionately make out with one another at the table again. We looked at the couple in disgust before turning to Jenna. So, what's the story? Alex asked. Well, although Jenna was apprehensive, she thought that the best way for her to understand what had happened was to gather external input, in other words, let her friends think about that for her. So I was watching One Piece. Jenna POV plus flashback. I'm trying a him format on this one. If it's weird, then tell me. Jenna. Mr. Davidson is coming today. Mom said as she knocked on my bedroom door. Who? I asked in confusion while looking up from the laptop. Remember you asked me before? The ways to become famous? Hold up, Edward's voice interrupted the flashback. School cafeteria. Why do you want to become famous? Ed asked. My eyes darted between my friends who were staring at me, and I bashfully lowered my head in embarrassment. Elsa rolled her eyes and admonished Ed, why else do you think? Ed thought for a bit and asked in disbelief. Because of me? Flashback. I was only asking what I could do. Don't just spring a movie producer on me like this. I can't even act. I said to my mom after she told me her plans. Really? I thought dash. Mom. Seriously? I stood up in anger and walked to my mother. Doesn't matter. It's too late anyway. Also, he's one of the good ones, I think. School cafeteria. So, is he one of the good ones? Ed asked while narrowing his eyes. I don't know. It wasn't him who came by. I replied. Flashback. While in the living room, I sat far away from the movie producer, a Harvey Wein's ***** wannabe who came by to persuade my mom into casting me in his movie. You know, there is a lot of competition out there, it's going to be hard for your daughter to have a successful debut as an actress. He said with a smile, but his words carried a certain threat. He scooched over to get close to me and put his hand on my thigh as he said, she got a lot of chance, she just need to let loose a little dash. My mom wasn't having it and threw a glass of lemonade on that man before dragging me away. She chased out the perverted producer and told me, never get near that man ever again. School cafeteria. He touched your thigh? How? Elsa asked. How? What do you want me to do? Show it here? I said sarcastically. Yeah. Show it on Ed. Jacob interjected. Me? Ed was confused when his name was suddenly mentioned. I looked at him and he looked at me, before I turned to Elsa and said, okay. Do it. We want to know. Enid said teasingly. Do it. Do it. Do it. You guys know you're supporting sexual harassment, right? Ed said, causing the group to fall silent. Not if she has your consent. Alex interjected, raising the group's spirit once more. Ed thought and nodded, giving me his permission. I really love Alex at this moment. I wanted to get closer to Ed for a long time now. Edward POV. So how in the hell did a conversation move from a pervy producer to me getting molested? Jenna blushed and giggled hard as she placed her palm on my thigh. That's pretty normal, Elsa said as she saw the example. Then, Jenna caressed her hand upward my thigh, making the whole group exclaim. Too far. Enid said with a blush as she stopped Jenna. I think it's not far enough, Jacob said in excitement before he got glared at by Elsa. You know the guy's name? I asked as I got a bad feeling about the whole thing. Nah. Sorry, Jenna replied, her hand still on my thigh. I shook my head as I noted about the whole incident in my mind. There's going to be consequences when you try to mess with my friends. My mom invited you to the house. She wants to meet you, Jenna said. Okay. I'll give you a call when I have free time, I replied casually as I too wanted to have a talk with her mother about the whole thing. Despite Jenna acting casual about the matter, I knew she was struggling with it. For example, she wore modest and baggy clothes today instead of her normal clothes. I patted her head and said, Don't worry. That asshole is nothing but a perv. It's not your fault. Also, I will make sure he'll pay for what he did. Jenna widened her eyes before lowering her head as she enjoyed the protection. Alex then sighed and put her books down. I can't study like this. I smiled and said, then. Wanna play a game? Can you say that again, but in Jigsaw's voice? Jacob asked. I turned to him and mimicked the toy and said in a hoarse voice, I want to play a game, while putting my hands together like a villain. You really should stop hanging out with my dad. Alex rolled her eyes and leaned forward as she waited for the game to start. Truth or dare? Elsa guessed the game. That should only be played when we all get to high school. It's very easy for the game to turn wildly inappropriate, so we really shouldn't play it right now. And definitely at the school cafeteria during lunch, Jenna said. What game, Ed? Enid asked as she kept her nail polish in her bag. I took out my phone and opened an app called Undercover. The game will give us two words that are similar to each other. What we should do is to use ambiguous and obscure words to describe the word we have gotten, and try to find the person with the different word the undercover. Ha! So, we will win if we catch the guy? How do we catch him? Jacob asked in intrigue. We're going to vote every time a turn ends. But, even if the undercover is caught, he or she could still win if they guessed the keyword accurately. There's also a Mr. White role where the player wouldn't be given a word at all, but we're not including it yet in the game. The phone would be a moderator for the game. After we all typed in our name and read our keyword, the game finally started. We'll start with Enid, I said as I read the game direction. Enid thought about it for a while and said, Jenna's lip gloss? The rest thought for a bit before they nodded at the clue. Acceptable, Jenna said. Alex, I said on behalf of the app's moderator. Alex smiled and said, red? Sure. Elsa accepted the hint. Next was Jacob, and he said, fruit. Jenna was next, and she said, supermarket. Hey! That's cowardly. Alex giggled and admonished Jenna. Elsa was next and she said, salad. Ha! Jenna was confused by the hint. Ha what? Elsa was flabbergasted when she realized that none of them could relate with her hint. I smiled and said, the last one is me, right? As we already know who the undercover is, I will say, the thing Jenna is allergic at. Vote now, I ordered. All of us pointed our fingers at Elsa, while she alone pointed the fingers at me. She glared at Jacob, and he reluctantly changed his vote to point at me, however it didn't change the outcome. I pressed Elsa's name on the apps, and it showed that she was undercover all along. What is your keyword? She asked. Strawberry. You? Jenna replied. Cherry. We played a few more times, and every time we caught someone lying, the whole table burst into laughter, and overall it was a great time for all of us. Alex managed to relax a bit before her exam, and I was able to create more valuable memories with my group of friends today. Hey! Next week is the summer festival. There's a stage for the bands. You should play there. Alex said as the lunch break bell rang. I don't think the school could afford my fee. I said with a slight smirk, making Alex roll her eyes. If you don't want to, then don't. She said gruffly and turned away. I grabbed her wrist and said, You're really like your grandfather. I wasn't finished. I'll sing, if you get up on the stage with me. Huh? I don't know how to play in a band. Also, I play the cello. She said in confusion. That's okay. I'll make a song that has a cello in it. I said confidently. She hesitated a bit and agreed afterward before we both walked back to our classes. I finished the rest of the exams without a hitch and I followed along the Dunphys as Claire drove us home after school was over. Ed. You're staying at our house tonight, right? Luke asked. Yeah. Cool. It'll be like sleeping over. What do you think I'm doing when I get there, Luke? Chapter 99, Overnight Chaos. General POV. High school. While Ed was playing a game with his friends at the school cafeteria, Tara, Abby, and Haley were also sitting around together at a similar table in another school trying to eat their lunch. However, unlike the warm, comforting air that enveloped Ed and his friends, the air around the girls was ice cold. Tara carefully looked at Haley and then Abby, who were ignoring each other. She picked her salad for a while before sighing and opening her mouth to break the silence. So, what happened? This girl is a skank. Abby said with hostility as she pointed at Haley. Flabbergasted, Haley defended herself quickly. Well, you're delusional. The other students whistled and chanted for them to fight each other. Abby showed her middle fingers with both arms to those eavesdropping and returned back to Tara. While calmly eating her salad, Tara wiped her mouth elegantly with a napkin as she swallowed her food before asking again, You guys still haven't told me what happened. Abby and Haley looked at each other warily before calming down a bit. Abby opened her mouth first and told her the entire story. After Tara listened to it until the end, she nodded and said, So. You guys are idiots. HUI-X2. Haley's commentary. Ugh. I can't believe her. Haley groaned as she flipped her hair back. Can you imagine she's being possessive of Ed, even when she's no longer his girlfriend? In fact, even their first relationship was a fake one. She said, then realizing that she was bad-mouthing her friend, and shut up immediately. Commentary ends. Tara pointed at Abby with her fork and asked, You're not making a move, and you're mad he's hooking up with the blondie, that, for some mysterious reason you guys don't want to tell me the name of? Or might that be because she is a famous person, or the info will hurt Ed if it gets out? Tara's sharp instinct made both Abby and Haley flinch, but they just nodded without confirming, nor denying, Tara's hypothesis. Tara narrowed her eyes at both of her friends before turning to Haley, And you? Didn't you say you were not making any moves until Abby had gone away to respect her? And then got shut down by him before you could even do it? Well, it's different now. Making a move is no longer a choice. It's a necessity. Otherwise Ed will be entangled in the creepy Hollywood scandals and influences, and will lose his way. And that's why he needs me. Abby added. Haley glared at her and said, No. He needs me. He's hurting right now. I can make him whole again. Well, I can too. Abby said, not backing down. Tara just silently ate her salad while mocking both of her friends inside her heart as she thought about the whole thing. Is this because of the guy who asked Abby out to prom? Tara asked. Both of them flinched again and Abby started to stammer, who? No one asked me dash. The football team quarterback, the one you broke the nose of on your first day at school? Gossip travels fast, you know? Tara said casually before finishing eating and starting to drink from a milk carton next. She glanced at Abby's and Haley's chests and prayed that she could raise her cup size before the end of the year and not get stuck at a cup while disdaining both of her friends at the same time. There's a simple solution for this, Tara said, no longer pursuing the subject given that Abby didn't want to talk about the football player anymore. What is it? Haley asked. Both of you, hook up with him. WWH what, X2? Abby's commentary. So when I drove Ed to school today, I saw his text with Tay-Day. They were flirting hard and he even planned to give her a kitten. Abby said in dissatisfaction. He even saved her name so intimately, can you believe that? She widened her eyes in disbelief as she crossed her legs and arms at the same time. I told Haley about it, and she reacted the same way as I am. I thought she was on my side, but it turns out she has her own motives. Then, Abby slumped her shoulders and said, I know I'm being a brat. Ed and I aren't even dating. But I really don't want to see him dating someone else. I wonder if Ed will not date Tay the blondie after hooking up with both Haley and I at the same time. Tara never said at the same time, but that's how Abby heard it. Commentary ends. Anyway, forget about Ed for a moment. Abby, you're staying here for the entire summer, right? Tara's eyes lit up as she heard the news from Haley today. Although Haley and Abby were fighting, Haley was extremely delighted that Abby had extended her stay in California before she had to go back to New York. Yeah. I don't know what my mom's plan is, but she requested to transfer her station to this town city hall. If they accept her, we will stay here until I graduate. But if she can't get the transfer, then I will just be here for the summer. Oh, we should buy bikinis, Haley said in excitement. Totally. And invite Ed to the beach. Abby was excited too, and both of the girls giggled as they planned for the summer. Tara narrowed her eyes at her friends and thought, weren't they fighting before? A few hours passed by, and Abby drove Tara and Haley home after school. Haley was not backing down when Abby kept being wishy-washy about Edward. It pissed her off. Before they knew it, they were fighting again. You're already his ex-girlfriend. Ex. Your relationship is already over. It didn't work out. Move on. Don't be so pathetic. Why? So you can date him? I saw the way you were looking at him. I never imagined you would betray your friend like this. Betray you? What did I do to betray you? You and Edward are over. Don't you remember? You broke up with him. Also, he's already dating Tay Dash. As Tara was there, Haley stopped her words halfway and looked warily at her friend. Tara shook her head in disdain and said, you don't have to force yourself to censor it anymore. I can already guess who it is. Abby was silent for a while and was contemplating hard before she said, he's sleeping over, right? Yeah. Why? Haley replied in confusion. Then, try to seduce him, Abby declared. Excuse me? Haley exclaimed in disbelief. Seduce him, and if he makes a move on you, that means he's only hooking up with Taylor. If it's like that, then we still have a chance, Abby explained. I don't want to argue. I want both of us to have the chance. Besides, I'm not staying in LA for long. I will be gone after summer. So let's have a fair fight for Ed. Haley was touched and both of them hugged as they made up, but then Tara chimed in, you guys are so cringy. Haley showed her tongue at Tara while Abby grinned hard before pressing the pedal, making Tara almost fall from the whiplash. Bitch. Tara cursed before they all laughed together. Edward POV. The smell of broiled salmon spread to the entire Dunphy kitchen. Ed. Are you cooking today? Alex asked in disbelief after she came downstairs from her room as she smelled the intoxicating aroma. Of course, while still holding on to her books. Yeah. Your mother let me stay here today. It's the least I can do, I said with a kind smile, making Alex blush inexplicably before she went to sit at the dining table. What? I asked in confusion as Alex was behaving strangely after the second part of school today. No, nothing. Alex hid her face behind her book as she stole glances at me once in a while as if studying me. Alex's commentary. Am I behaving weirdly now? Well, maybe, but it's all Enid's fault. Alex grunted as her face flushed when thinking about what Enid said to her before. Flashback. Alex was standing next to Enid as she opened her locker, and was shocked when she saw the numerous Edward Newgate merchandise inside the small metal box. You, seriously? Alex looked at Enid in disbelief as she saw her caressing Ed's abs for luck before closing the locker door. What? He's hot. Enid said casually. He's our friend. Alex said sternly. Nah, he has a dual identity. Like Hannah Montana, friend and an artist. I'm a fan of the latter, and good friend with the first one. Alex was confused and asked, so what's with the inappropriate touching then? Enid took a deep breath before she explained with a dazed expression and turned-on voice, well, Ed has given a lot of young girls, like me, the courage to explore the suddenly unfamiliar topography of their changing body dash. Okay, stop. Alex said with a blush. Enid grinned and continued, I stick up the poster next to my bed, every single night and dash. No, Enid. Don't. Alex ran away while Enid chased her from behind to stimulate Alex's prudeness and open up her mind to higher possibilities. Don't forget to peek behind the door while he's staying over at your house. If you have any pictures dash. I won't perv on him. Alex declared as she ran away from Enid again. Flashback ends. See? It's all Enid's fault. Alex muttered with a hot face. Commentary ends. I ignored Alex and focused on the cooking for a few minutes before Phil walked into the kitchen after he got back from work. Hi Phil, did you sell a house today? I asked casually as he stopped to look at what I was cooking. Phil grinned and said, a Victorian era, 3,700 square feet, 40% down payment, all in only one day. I nodded while amazed at Phil's selling skill and thought for a bit. Despite Gil Thorpe usually being the best salesman in the area, Phil was usually just behind him in sales, making him the second best salesman here. By my calculation, he could get up to $1 million in sales revenue even if he only sold 4 to 5 houses per month, given the horrendous price of the houses in the city. Even the ordinary 3-bedroom house with a picket fence that the Dunphys was currently living in was priced at $1.3 million nowadays. Sure, they bought it almost 2 decades ago, but still. Nice job, Phil. I said and raised my right hand up. He smiled from ear to ear and high-fived me before Claire walked into the kitchen. Before Phil could greet her, I pulled his ear close and whispered something to him. He chuckled a bit and looked at Claire. What is it? Claire said with a smile, hiding her wariness. Hey Claire, it's nothing. Ed just asked me what a bee makes. Honey? Claire replied. Yes, dear. Phil and I both laughed while Claire thought for a few seconds and then rolled her eyes at us. Don't hang out with Phil anymore. You're infected. You need to make sure not to ruin your artist image by doing this kind of puns outside. Nah. People will love it. I said as I bit on a macadamia nut before finishing with the broiled salmon. Claire rolled her eyes and walked next to me and started helping out with the dinner preparation. However, the house's doorbell rang at this time. Who is it? Phil asked from afar as he walked to the door. It's Gloria. Phil opened the door in excitement and asked, what brings you here? Well, I heard Ed is staying here for a boys' night. Sue? She dragged the reluctant Manny in front of her with a huge grin on her face. Mom! It's not a sleepover. Manny tried to argue. No. You need to stay here and have the boys' time with Luke. And Ed. Gloria said in a reprimanding tone. I don't mind. I said. The more the merrier. But, someone has to sleep on the floor. Gloria and Jay's commentary. Today is the anniversary of our first date, and Jay had planned something special, for just the two of us. Gloria said as she looked at Jay with a smitten look. Jay smiled with his mouth, but not with his eyes as he waited for Gloria to finish talking. Manny didn't want to say it, but he's feeling a bit, what's the word? Isolated. Estranged. No friends want to hang out with him? Jay guessed. Yeah, that last one. So when Claire told me Ed is staying over with Luke, it was a perfect opportunity for Manny to have his first sleepover with his friends. I know Ed will take care of him, so I can leave him there with an easy heart. Gloria said. Jay didn't want to correct Gloria as he wanted to keep her in a good mood. Jay's commentary. He took out a CD and said, Ed had given me the songs I wanted. 3 songs in Spanish. But the problem is, I lost the translation paper, and have no idea what the songs are all about. He rubbed his forehead in frustration as he said, Now. I already promised Gloria something special for the dating anniversary. Luckily Ed hinted to me after Gloria told him about it. Otherwise I would have no idea she was hoping for something special today. Jay was silent for a while and muttered, How the hell should I play the songs now? Commentary ends. After dinner, the family went on to do their own things. The hyperactive Luke was reprimanded by his mother and had to finish his homework first before she would allow him to play with us, therefore he was thrown to his own room for him to do his work under Claire's supervision. Manny needed to do his homework too, therefore he joined Luke in his room. Alex had gone back to studying, leaving only Phil, Haley, and I in the living room. Hey Ed, wanna watch this? Haley said as she took out a DVD. It's titled, The Unborn. A horror movie? Really? I widened my eyes in surprise. Yeah. It's going to be fun. Haley said with a grin and a slight shoulder tilt before she clung to my arm and dragged me to the sofa. Haley's commentary. I'm not an idiot. It would be very dumb of me to try and show him a sensual move, while he's at my house. Haley said with a sly grin. So I'm going to make a few girly moves. Such as dash. Living room. Haley was on Ed's left side as they watched the movie. They cuddled underneath a blanket with Haley looking fearful as she watched the movie. Boom! The ghost popped out on the screen. Kaya. Haley screamed in fear and clung into Ed's arm while simultaneously pressing her body into his as she covered her eyes from watching the horror scene. Ed was helpless and couldn't help but pat her to comfort her. For him, the movie was boring. He couldn't help but laugh a few times because of how fake it was. Back to commentary. See, she said while pointing at her temple. Then, she sighed and said, It would all have worked better though, if my dad wasn't there too. Living room. Boom, the ghost popped out on the screen. Kaya. Haley screamed and clung onto Ed's arm. Kyaa. Phil screamed in a high-pitched voice before he clung onto Ed's right arm. Then, he collected himself and tried to laugh it off by saying, I knew that was going to happen. God Haley, stop being such a coward. I'll go make some popcorn. Phil walked away quickly, and when the ghost popped out on the screen again, he almost fell while he was walking behind the sofa. Guys. Luke needs my help, so I'm not going to be able to protect you guys. Phil said, trying to act tough as if he was going away for Luke's benefit. The ghost came on the screen once more, and Phil yelped before he ran away quickly. Edward POV. Haley's leg was on my lap as she cuddled with me on the sofa. She kept squirming and intimately clinging onto my neck as she laid her head on my chest after her dad had moved away. You did this on purpose, right? I said as I brushed her hair. Maybe. She said slyly and kissed my neck without any warning. I widened my eyes in surprise and said hurriedly, Are you crazy? What if your mom saw that? Also, what are you doing? Nothing. What did I do? Haley asked innocently. I pinched her ass, causing her to yelp seductively. I looked into her eyes and said, Don't play too much. I don't want to get into trouble. Haley smirked and rested her head on my chest again before muttering, You know. You can just do the easy thing and push me away. Nah. Your body temperature is pretty nice. It's like cuddling with a heat pack. Also, I'm feeling pity for you. Huh? Why? Haley said in confusion. She moved her head to look at me in the eyes as I said, well, you have been single for so long, I think you're having relationship withdrawal syndrome. I am not dash. Before she could finish, I pushed her head back to my chest again. She pouted and punched me before saying, you're having the competition tomorrow. Why aren't you studying like Alex? I have already finished studying. Alex too, but she insisted on revising the materials. I explained. Suddenly, Alex walked into the living room with a book in her hand. She glared at Haley in disdain before saying, playtime is over. I need to study with Ed. Move. What? We're watching a movie. You move. Haley argued. Alex turned to the room direction and shouted, Moem. Haley is dash. Before she could finish, Haley already jumped out and cupped her mouth anxiously. Okay. Alex narrowed her eyes at Haley before walking to the sofa and sat extremely close to me. She put the book on my body and asked, this. Have you read this part? Yeah. Do you have any questions about it? I asked casually. No, Alex replied. Then why did you come down? Chapter 100, Chaos continues. Edward POV. After Luke and Manny finished with their homework, they came to the living room with Claire and Phil following them from behind. Oh. Thank God. Phil muttered as he saw Haley had finally stopped watching the movie. Haley was currently glaring at Alex, who disrupted her intimate moment and pretending to be on the phone, while Alex kept discussing the decathlon materials with me without caring about the hostile gaze. Claire saw the scene in the living room and smiled brightly as we kept things PG without her there. Ed, do you want some snacks? She asked. No need, Claire. Can I go to the room now, or do you still need some time to clean it up? I asked. Claire was taken aback and then smiled wryly as she was caught. She said, no, Luke's room is clean enough, for now. Okay, thanks. Are you boys going to sleep? Claire asked casually as if it was the most normal thing in the world. Manny and Luke turned to each other while I looked at the clock. Claire, it's 8:30. Luke's bedtime is at 9, so, Claire said before clapping slightly, all the kids should go to sleep at the same time. Manny, and you included Ed. I paused for a while and said while meeting her eyes, yeah, I'm not going to do that. My house, my rules. Claire parented skillfully. I still need to do some work, Claire. I debated. No arguments. Claire said sternly. I narrowed my eyes at her, making her flinch. What? She asked warily. Nothing. Just wondering about something. I muttered. What are you thinking about? Claire asked as she crossed her arms together. I'm wondering why you want me to follow your rules so badly. I said. Is it stems from your cripping need for control, or you wanted to pop open a glass of wine and have a good time with Phil after all the kids were forced to go to sleep? Okay, stop. Claire said and put her hand on my shoulder. I still have an innocent smile on my face, which made Claire feel twice the horror than if I made a scary face at this moment. I'm not letting you sleep late. I'll allow you to extend the bedtime until 10 o'clock. Then, all of you will have to go to sleep. Claire said decisively before she harumphed away. Whoa ho ho ho! Luke and Manny exclaimed in excitement before Luke said, nice. We have a later bedtime. Thanks, Ed. Whatever. I'm not sleeping at 10. Otherwise I will wake up at 2. Phil, do you have any workout instruments? I asked as I turned to Phil. I think so? Phil questioned himself. I scrunched my face in confusion, so did Haley and Alex. Phil's commentary. I have, 5 pounds pink weight in the Street Strider, oh, and also a trampoline, Phil said with excitement at the last part before he turned depressed again, so no, I don't have anything he could use to work out right now. Commentary ends. That doesn't matter. Luke, get on my back. I ordered. On it. Luke saluted before running to follow me from behind as we moved to his room. Manny, you're joining me. I shouted at Manny, who was frozen at his initial spot. Phil seemed helpless, and Claire patted his shoulder and chest to comfort him as she could guess what he was feeling right now. Claire's commentary. Both boys, and even the girls, were looking at Ed for direction and guidance. I guess Phil was a bit jealous. But he's settling for Ed looking at him, for guidance. Claire explained before she lowered her eyes and whispered, "But I need to make sure Phil doesn't turn him into another, well, you know, Phil." Commentary ends. Is this really necessary? Manny asked whiningly, and he definitely didn't want to work out this late at night, or ever. You're asking me how to make a girl swoon, right? If you don't come, I won't tell you, I said cheekily, making both Haley and Alex grin. Manny saw the girls' reactions, and was immediately filled with motivation. Wait for me, he shouted as he ran to catch up with us. Haley and Alex decided to watch, and they followed us to Luke's bedroom and leaned on the doorframe without actually coming into the room. I took off my shirt as we got into the room, revealing my toned abs, but not yet sculpted. Haley bit her lower lips and let out a turned-on groan, making me roll my eyes at her. I turned to Luke and said, "Can you ask your mom for a spray bottle filled with water? I want to spray your sister every time she looks at me like that." I censored my wordings as I was with 10 years old, otherwise my words would be a lot more crude. Haley was taken aback while the others laughed at her. As I started to work out, Manny was a bit apprehensive to follow me in doing the routine. "Why?" I asked. "I don't feel comfortable exercising with people staring at me." Alex rolled her eyes and said, "We're not even looking at you, Dash." You know what, Manny? You're right. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, then you don't have to force yourself to do it. But in this case, there's a simple solution for it. Ha! What's the solution? Manny asked in confusion. I walked to the door, making both of the girls stare at me in confusion. Then, I waved at them and slowly closed the door to their faces. What the fuck, Dash? Haley almost cursed from outside the door. Haley! Claire heard it and shouted at her. I smiled in satisfaction, while Manny was thoroughly impressed by my actions. What? I asked him. You know, I don't think I will ever have the bravery to do what you just did. Manny confessed. I placed my hand on his shoulder and comforted him. Yeah. I know. After teasing Manny, we started working out for real. I let him do simple body stretches first as a warm-up before coaching him. Luke was laughing at Manny's misery from beside me, so I slowly turned toward him with a stern expression. This is all your fault. Luke was accused as he was forced to do the exercise beside Manny. I don't even want to do this in the first place. Manny exclaimed, and he could no longer do the knee on the floor push-ups I gave him, and laid flat on the hardwood tiles. I quit. Manny said while breathing heavily. I thought you wanted me to teach you how to get girls. I asked. If getting girls means changing who I am, then I don't want to do it anymore. Manny argued as he turned and laid on his back. I nodded and said, then. That's that. What? You're not trying to motivate me? Or tell me about the benefits of needing exercises? Manny asked in confusion after seeing I gave up so easily. Why should I? With you knowing that question, I could assume that you're already familiar with it. You're a smart boy. I'm sure you've already figured it all out by now. Manny hesitated for a while, and his face turned crestfallen. I didn't want to torture him for long, so I baited him. Too bad your mother could only live for 20 more years because of you. Huh? Why? Will Manny kill Gloria? Luke asked in confusion, and tried to stop exercising, but I noticed it and used my eyes to stare at him until he did the push-ups again. Will I kill my mother, Ed? Why? Manny asked in puzzlement. His face lit up and there was a certain madness in his eyes. Mama boys, I will protect my mother no matter what. Madness. Or will you kill his mother cause he's not listening to you? Luke hypothesized. You bastard, Dash. Nah. You misunderstand me. No one is murdering Gloria. I'm just saying, when Manny dies from a blocked artery at the age of 30, then Gloria will die from a broken heart and follow him into the afterlife. I replied casually while holding Manny's head with one arm, stopping him from trying to lunge at me. Manny froze and he trembled with the fear of losing his own mother. I know I was being manipulative, but as Gloria said before, the only thing stronger than fear is Manny's love for his mother. Now inside of Manny, his unwillingness of changing and trying to be better, the feeling of burdensomeness when he actually needs to take care of himself every single day to get better, were all being rewritten by the fear of actually killing his own mother, allegedly. This whole conversation was hypothetical. You're exaggerating, Luke said in disdain. Luke, you don't know a Latina mother. Especially a Colombian one, I replied. Manny had the tiny trace of suspicion in his heart before, and it was promptly distinguished by this statement. Arg. Manny broke into full speed squats and push-ups after his spirit was lit by his love for his mother. But he fell lifelessly on the bed just half an hour later. Aren't you going to clean up first? I asked Manny, who was sweating all over. Luke only did the initial part, so he wasn't sweating, but he was tired as it was almost 10 p.m. right now. Luke's bedroom has a bunk bed. Luke climbed into the top part, while Manny was already sleeping on the second part. Also, Manny couldn't even climb to the upper part of the bunk bed without help, further intensifying my desire to help him get the proper fitness a normal 10-year-old boy should have. Sweet dreams, you guys. If we see each other in our dreams, let's pretend we don't know each other. Goof around a little bit before we get together. All right? Manny answered with a groan and a thumbs up. I will not be able to see you anyway. I'm thinking of becoming Godzilla and destroying New York, so don't come around that town. Luke muttered as he rubbed his tired eyes. I was taken aback at first before I replied, okay, got it. Avoid New York. Luke nodded before he smiled and rested his head on the pillow, peacefully falling asleep. I pity the residents of New York dreamland. I muttered before walking out of the room to take a shower. General POV. Inside of the girls' room, Haley grunted in annoyance after the door was slammed to her face. She paced left to right, and right to left in her room, just muttering madly to herself about the ways Edward had slighted her. Calm down. So he could see that you couldn't keep yourself single any longer. He's right, you know. Relationships are like a drug in your system. It's only been 2 months of you being single, and you're now having withdrawal syndromes. Messing with Ed is like your nicotine patch. It's good to alleviate the symptoms, but it's not really the cure. Alex said in rare calmness despite her sister's annoying behavior going on in front of her. Haley was taken aback for a moment before she said mockingly, I know that. Then, she added, but he shouldn't throw that to my face. And you throw yourself at him. Alex was flabbergasted and defended herself quickly, what I didn't dash. Oh please. Where's your boyish shirt? Why are you wearing a blouse right now? And you sticking close to him like glue when I'm trying to watch a movie with my boyfriend Dash. See right there? Relationship withdrawal. You really have a problem, do you? Alex said in a concerned tone as her sister's behavior was alarming for her. Shut up. Without being a couple, I don't even know myself anymore. Haley admitted with gritted teeth before she sat on the edge of her bed. Alex thought for a while and warily asked, don't a lot of boys in school already ask you out? Why don't you pick one of them and be done with it? Haley scoffed, but she didn't answer. How could she reply that she felt they were incomparable to Ed in terms of everything? That would make her an obsessive bitch, and she didn't like that. I'm going to take a shower, Haley said after thinking for a while. You didn't name your electric toothbrush Edward, did you? Alex asked in disgust. No, Haley replied exasperatingly. There was only one bathroom on the upper floor of the house, outside of the girls' room, shared by both Luke and the girls, while Claire and Phil had their own bathroom inside their bedroom. Claire and Phil had already eased up on the bed as they both have a busy day today. However, they weren't quite asleep just yet. After 5 minutes, Haley was showering inside the bathroom, free from all thoughts. She stood underneath the shower head stark naked inside the tub before putting on shower cream on her body. As she picked up the shower cream container, a bushy, 8-legged creature suddenly greeted her as it was exposed. She froze, her eyes blinked twice to process what was happening. "Arg! Spider!" Haley screamed. Edward POV. I had already taken off my clothes and was only wrapping my waist with a towel and stood in front of the bathroom door. My hand halted as I was going to turn the knob as I heard some showering noise coming in from inside the room. Therefore, I turned back and decided to wait until the one inside was finished before I cleaned myself up. Until, I suddenly heard a distress shout coming from inside the room. "Ah! Spider! Wait! Haley? Haley, do you want me to come in?" I asked as I could hear she was wreaking havoc inside the room. "Yes, please," Haley yelled while trying to throw the soap dispenser to the 8-legged creature. The creature avoided her attack by moving to the left and right before inching its way toward her, causing her to scream again. I twisted the doorknob hard, and the lock broke so easily that I was almost surprised by its brittleness, and almost fell down as the door was propped open abruptly. I entered quickly, unaware that I had closed the door as I slammed it shut. "Kill it, kill it!" Haley pointed her finger at the monster attacking her. I saw that the little guy had fallen down to the water and was almost sucked into the drain despite its tremendous effort to avoid Haley's assault. "Hey! It's all right," I said calmly to the both of them as I slowly scooped the spider out of the water. "What are you doing? Kill it!" Haley screamed and slapped my hand away from behind me, making the spider roll 3 times in the air before falling on the dry floor of the bathroom. "Ugh! Haley!" I groaned in frustration as she kept throwing things at the creature. It kept avoiding her, but it seemed that its stamina was already on the brink of draining. Haley kept grabbing some stuff near her, until she finally grabbed something she was not supposed to, my towel, and threw it at the spider. I was so baffled that my jaw dropped as I turned to look at her. She froze as she saw what she had done, and now, there were 2 naked people inside the bathroom, staring awkwardly at each other for about 10 seconds as no one knew how to react to this situation. Taking advantage of the situation, the spider crawled to the tiny window up above the bathroom wall, and jumped outside of the house before spraying a web parachute and got picked up by the wind to go someplace else. Or that's what I imagined it had done. "Hey! What happened?" Both of us could hear Claire's anxious voice coming from in front of the door, breaking us out from our daze. "I'm coming in," she said, and the door was opening slightly. Without me realizing it, Haley grabbed me and pulled me into the shower tub before closing the shower curtain and opening the shower faucet again. Claire entered the bathroom and almost reached the shower zone. She grabbed the shower curtain with one hand, preparing to open it and see what was going on. Haley held her breath, and before she could open her mouth, I cupped it and shouted first, "Claire! It's me!" Claire instinctively stopped her hand and froze as it wasn't one of her children inside of it. If it was Haley or anyone else, she would just barge into the shower without any concern about their embarrassment. Ed? I thought I heard a girl's voice? Claire asked in confusion and a bit of embarrassment. I mouthed to Haley, "Why the hell did you pull me in here?" I panicked. She mouthed back as I released her mouth. "What should I say now?" I asked anxiously. "Make something up. She can't know. Or she'll ban you from coming, ever." "Ed? What's going on?" Claire asked again. Her suspicions grew as I took so long to answer. I swear to God, I got so many IQ points that it lowered my EQ points greatly to balance it all out. I sound like a girl sometimes when I scream. I muttered, and regretted what I said the second it came out of my mouth. Haley almost laughed, and I glared at her, making her keep her voice down. "Really?" Claire asked in both confusion and bewilderment as she processed it. "Yeah, I'm self-conscious about it. And will definitely suffer if you ever told someone else what happened here today. I might even stop coming here forever," I said with a grim tone. Claire was surprised behind the curtain, but she still hadn't let go of the thin layer of barrier separating us. My heart palpitates like crazy, and my extreme skin-to-skin contact with Haley allowed me to hear her crazy heartbeats too. But she was distracted and kept looking down during my whole ordeal, which drove me almost insane. "Stop looking at it," I mouthed. "Sorry. It's right there," she replied with no sounds while pointing at something. "Oh. Are you sure you're fine?" Claire asked again in a worrying tone. "Yeah. The spider is gone now," I replied, hoping that she would go away soon without noticing anything weird inside the room. "Oh, okay. I'm glad then. I'll help you pick up the shower dispenser," Claire said and handed me the bottle of soap from the gap of the curtain. "That's close enough, Claire." "Thanks," I said hurriedly as I grabbed the bottle. I handed it to Haley to hold as her hands were running wild. "Also, Ed, there's an interesting feature on the shower if you feel that the water is not hot enough," Claire said in excitement as she wanted to share her knowledge of technology to me right now, while I was stark naked, in the shower. "Mrs. Robinson, I'm going to stop you right there. Remember what I'm doing over here, and I don't have any clothes on right now. Although I wouldn't mind you joining me, I just couldn't do that to Phil Dash." Oh. Right. Sorry." Claire was finally snapped back to reality and retreated hurriedly to the door. "Hey, why is the door broken?" she asked after collecting herself. "I don't know. It broke before I even came in. I made some excuses." "Oh. I'll have Phil take a look at it tomorrow. I will stand guard and not let anyone else come in while you're showering, so you can be at ease," Claire said, offering her hospitality. "No, it's okay, Claire. I'm still going to take a while." "It's okay. You shouldn't feel unsafe while you're showering." "I will stay," Claire said and closed the door behind her as she walked out. "Okay, thanks, Claire. I appreciate it," I said with gritted teeth while shaking my fist in frustration as she kept lingering, but I couldn't actually say it was logical to ask her to go away. "Now what?" I asked Haley. However, she hit me in the chest and said, "A naked girl is standing in front of you, and you're still hitting on her mother." Well, speaking as most men, if I have the chance with both mother and daughter, and especially together, I will not be afraid to take it. But this is a separate topic, no? Now, how the hell should we get out of here? Haley pumped off a couple of soap into her hand and started to wash me beginning from my chest. "What the?" "We're in the shower. She's going to be suspicious if you're not showering," she said, and her hand tried to go down below the belt, but I grabbed it and said, "True. We're in the shower." To her surprise, I pumped out the shampoo and started washing her hair. "Oh my god, that's so good," Haley moaned with her eyes turned to the back of her head as she enjoyed the head massage. Finally, blood could reach her brain and she said casually, "Big deal. You go out first, and then, I'll come out after you lead her away." "Haley, you had lived with your mother for 16 years. Do you really believe that after a guest comes and uses her shower, she won't come to check, and even clean it?" "Oh shit. You're right. What should we do?" She finally understood the severity of the situation and freaked out a little. "By the way, you're really okay with both of us naked in the shower together, huh?" "Well, it's nothing I haven't seen before. And you're right, you did grow. She replied casually before whispering seductively in my ear, "I'm a bit curious now to see where this will go." I smiled and whispered back, making her bite her lower lips as she heard it, "The thought of taking your virginity while your mother is directly next door is like the devil's whisper in my ears. I'm really trying hard right now to keep myself rational, so please don't make it even worse." She let out a cute moan before trying hard to calm herself up. She whispered, "You might have awakened something dangerous in me, or just planted a seed there." "Focus, Haley." "Right. Sorry. Haley and I thought for a while, before Haley snapped her finger and said, "I got it." My eyes lit up expectantly and I asked, "What is it?" "When you open the door and meet my mother, drop off your towel." "What the fuck?" I paused. Thought about it for a while, and replied, "That might work." Haley and I both nodded our heads as we were sure of the plan was going to work, and she suddenly said, "Now with that solved, the next important question is, are we sure we're not going to do anything while we're here?" That wraps up this part of What If Karmic Gacha System and Modern Family World. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.